Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mysteries and Oddities video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another new entry here. This one yet again based on a new suggestion. This one having to do with something that has been posted or suggested multiple times in the past. It just goes to show if you don't see your entry done in a video, just please go ahead and continue to post them thereafter. I will come around to them, and as you'll see here, eventually select something that I can place on a particular playlist. But this has to do with a mysterious set of man-eating male lions that apparently terrorized the region there in Kenya, and the mysterious side has to do with why they were there killing so many people. In fact, it's been said and reported that they killed up to 135 people, killed and consumed them too. So I'm going to present some of those reasons associated with why they did this, or some of the suggestions that people have posted over the years later on in the video. But you're looking at a representation of it here, and it's known as the Tsavo Man-Eaters. The Tsavo Man-Eaters. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that freaky occurrence here. I'd love to hear what your own thoughts and comments on there too are, and I'll place my own a little bit later in the actual video. So here's essentially what happened. So you have to go over to March 1898, again a region of Kenya known as Tsavo, and there in an area was going to be the construction of a brand new railway. This was going to be done by the British Empire. This would be linking Uganda over with the Indian Ocean. It was a big project too. This was going to cover a good number of miles. In fact, the actual camp area that the men were going to work at, let alone, was going to be about 8 miles total. And most importantly, there was going to be several thousand of these Indian workers there building this railway. All of that was going to be led by one man, a guy by the name of Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson, who you're looking at here. It was going to be his task to make sure that this project was going to be completed on time, that everything that was needed was going to be processed, everyone was going to be safe, and so on. He had a big job, but he was there to be able to do so. But lo and behold, just a few days after he arrived, that's when the first set of mysterious disappearances associated with these workers started happening. The way I was reading this information, it made it seem like there wasn't much hoopla at first, because it seemed like those disappearances, while they were noticed, didn't necessarily cause too much anxiety. It just made it seem like this was a natural occurrence. Either, I guess, these workers left or they disappeared under other mysterious circumstances. But as it continued happening on a daily basis, on a nightly basis in this case, that's when things took a different turn. That's when Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson realized that something was happening. And then lo and behold, that's when the rumors end up becoming a reality. A pair of maneless male lions, so again, maneless male lions were found, 2 of them, stalking the area associated with these railway workers. In fact, it was found that they were stalking the campsite at night using their very expert stealth tactics. I mean, you just got to see any nature video to see, how easily these lions creep up to their prey. Well, they were there going into the tents at night and then dragging these poor railway workers away from their tents right there as they slept. You could just imagine how easily it was for them, because these railway workers were probably working all day in the hot sun. Then there they were at night, just sleeping as much as they could, just probably passed out. And then here they have these 2 maneless male lions now coming in and then just dragging them away, probably grabbing them by the necks too, as the usual practice is from lions, to make sure that it was the easiest way to handle them. Well, obviously this was causing a lot of calamity now within the campsite, and then Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson was on it as well. In fact, it was shortly after that there was almost like a period of calm within that area. There was almost like a reprieve, but it turns out that that's because the theory is that these same maneless male lions were now actually roaming other areas, but they decided to come back. And this time it was even with more intensity. They started to grab more and more of these workers despite the multiple attempts of these railway workers to stop them. In fact, there was actual fences that were erected around the campsite. These included having thorns associated with them. It turns out the lions just pretty much just jumped over them, or they were so blood crazy that they scraped underneath it. I'm sure that they were probably cut here and there because of those large thorns, but it didn't matter to them. These lions were essentially in on it, like they wanted to grab that prey as much as possible, and it was now happening every single night. There was even other attempts involving campsite fires, large fires too, almost like bonfires, to ensure that there was nothing else to be able to there was something else to stop these lions, but no, it was still continuing. And so this attack continued for a little while as well, to the point that the construction itself was put on hold. None of these workers wanted to be able to do anything anymore without having some kind of protection, because at this point it was a large number of them, several dozen in fact, that were basically gone, and then these lions were not being captured, and it looked like they were still as dangerous as ever. And so finally, that's when British colonial support arrived. 20 armed men came as well. It was all set with traps to make sure that these lions were found and that they were shot. The first incident happened on December 9th, 1898. It was again led by the lieutenant colonel himself. That's when he in turn found one of those lions and then shot him in the hind leg. But it turns out that it escaped. It actually was able to get out of there in time. So it didn't die outright right there, but it decided to come back at that very, very same time period. In fact, it was later that evening, and it in turn had a vendetta. It actually started stalking the lieutenant colonel himself, John Henry Patterson. And so when that occurred, that's when Patterson shot him again, and then he didn't kill him even then at that point. Instead, the lion escaped once again, but the next morning, its body was found. It was not found, in fact, too far away from the camp. And on top of that, this creature was measured, this actual lion, and it was found to be almost 2.95 meters from the very tip of its nose all the way till the tip of its tail. So the first set of these bloodthirsty lions was now found. On to the second one. The second one occurred 20 days later. This was again another situation where the lion was in turn still trying to stalk these poor railway workers and then trying to eat them. On December 29th, that's when the second lion was found. It was shot 6 times, in fact, 6 times, but not over one day. It was found to be shot 6 times over 11 days. That's how crazy it was. This thing was really good at basically evading capture, and it had a high stamina, it looks like, from these number of bullets. And I was reading another one where the lion was shot actually 9 times altogether, and still, in other words, it was escaping, like it was able to just leave. And then it turns out that finally later on, that's when the incident that climaxed was this. The lieutenant colonel found the lion stalking him once again, and then there he was on a tree branch, no less. And then this lion was shot, and then it was once in the head, and it outright killed it. In fact, it died basically right there, gnawing on a tree branch as it was trying to reach the lieutenant colonel. It was on its, up to the very last few seconds, it was still on its death march right then and there. And then that's when the 2 lions were basically propped up. You're looking at some of those pictures of it here. And these lions were analyzed. They were looked at. Apparently their hair was also analyzed as well. That's where it was come to the conclusion that a total of up to 135 people were killed by these two lions. Now, it's considered, though, never really verified as far as that figure. That's because the actual number of people, like in other words, these railway workers, was far less. Those that disappeared or were presumed killed by these two lions. In fact, it was somewhere around like 20 or 30 altogether. But the reason for the much larger number is because there's unofficial records of other disappearances around that area, especially from some of the African natives. So not necessarily those that are tied to the railway workers, but those that are just around the area. And they have been linked to these two lions as well during the same period. And then that led to the roundabout range of it being 135 kills. If that's true, then it's considered the largest number of killings done by a pair of lions, let alone one lion, but now you have two of them there, because otherwise there are still man-eating lions throughout the world, but nowhere near this record. It definitely remains the highest one in recorded history. As to what happened with these two lions afterward, the lieutenant colonel actually ended up putting them on display. He put them on display within his home. He made them out of a set of rugs. He had it there for the longest time, but then afterward, he ended up selling it to the Chicago Field Museum. He ended up selling it to them for a good price, too, $5,000. Which was no doubt a hefty amount back then. Back in 1924, those skins were then placed in the museum, but as you can see here, they were carefully made back into the lion's body. So you're looking at a good representation of what they look like back when they were still alive. And then these, I believe, are the actual skulls of the two lions themselves, like the real life skulls associated with them. So if you ever go to that area there, the Chicago Field Museum of Natural History, you'll get to see those two lions, the infamous Tsavo Man-Eater lions there in the flesh, basically. And then when you go there, you also see apparently a third one as well from another attack elsewhere. But at least what a nice way of seeing this history right there for you without having all the danger, obviously, associated with it from before. Now, as far as the reasons as to why these lions were doing what they did, it comes down to a few. And in fact, here's some of them right here. And I'll give my thoughts on what I think is the one most likely. There was also an outbreak of a cattle plague that occurred in 1898 in that area. That was one of the main reasons that people think that these lions turned to humans, because there was no longer any food for them. There was no cattle around, and so they needed another food source. Another reason is this, and apparently in that area, there were a lot of dead men that were found in the Tsavo River, and these lions were eating them just as is, like in other words, eating the carcasses. I have no idea how these men were dead there. Maybe they were killed by others, or maybe they just died of natural causes, or maybe there was an area there where the dead bodies were moved to. But either way, though, the lions got an appetite for humans, and then they liked it, and so they decided to go to the campsites and then have some more. And then another reason is this. Apparently, there's also a custom there associated with cremations. And so these cremations occurred with these bodies of these humans, and then these lions were around the area. Maybe they ate those remains as well, and then that ended up them causing the ability to get that taste to be able to eat humans and then move over into the campsites. And then finally, the fourth reason is this: examinations of the bodies associated with those two maneless male lions turns out that they were suffering from a very bad dental disease. This was a disease that was so bad that it's theorized that instead of them being able to hunt normal prey, the kind that is fast, the kind that is strong, their teeth wouldn't allow them to have that strength for it. So instead they moved to humans, who are much easier to catch, obviously. And so I think in that case, that's what I believe occurred most. If you have that kind of disease in the dental side and you can't hunt any of the normal prey because of it, what else is a lion going to do, right? They're going to move over to humans, and lo and behold, here's this huge campsite with thousands of men there, all of a sudden there's an area there of new food for them. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with these Tsavo Man-Eaters. Let me know what you guys think about this lore, about the legend associated with them. Let me know as well what you think about the mystery, about why they decided to kill so many of these railway workers. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are as well. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.